warning before this hit it.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Fight Against Boredom Starborne Players podcast. We are your hosts.
I'm Feca.
I'm Albendinger.
And I'm Branxbro.
Let's get this week's Fight Against Boredom started. No guest this week. We're bringing it back to the core. We figured it'd be beneficial to keep it simple and just take a good deep dive on all the new mechanics and changes that Snookums indulged us in last week. So we'll mostly be going over what we've been discovering and theorizing about the game on the Super Tester server. I mean, I say we, but really I mean Feca and Bronx, as I haven't actually been able to get on the test server yet. Like, I have never seen the link, and I think it's a unicorn. So let me ask right now, live on podcast, is the test server real?
It's real if you can find it up. I think a lot of times, you know, they're putting stuff up, they're making changes, they're bringing it down. So it can be hard to plan one of your days around it, or you kind of just have to get it when you can. But yeah, you can definitely you can get in there. We've spent a good amount of time in there. So
yeah, there have also been some login issues that have been rectified, as far as I'm aware of.
So that's pretty much the that's the plan for today. We're just gonna Bronx has written a nice Swedish skit for us. All his notes are in Swedish, so we don't get to know what he's thinking of what's gonna come out of his mouth today. The only kind of announcement-y thing that we have is the Starborne Roundtable event, which I guess is just a come join, come talk event for the official Discord. It's going to be on the 29th at 1800 server time.
Yeah, that's going to be really fun. They're going to be able to answer a lot of stuff. You can kind of ask them questions directly, kind of like what we kind of got to do on the podcast. With Snuggins, just kind of, you know, rack your brain against them. So that should be a lot of fun. And
like, reminder for all players everywhere, please tear down your server cards. Like, tear down all your cards, break them down, get your blueprints, and recommended, although not necessarily you have to, that you don't spend your blueprints right away. Wait until you get into the server, because there's going to be changes and you might not want to get the blueprints for the thing that you used to need. So tear down your cards, break them down. Go do it right now.
Oh yeah, that's going to be an interesting thing too. They've already confirmed, you know, the time cards have all gotten much cheaper too, so it might even be worth to finally blueprint out some time cards, because they're actually feasible to create now. So that's going to be a lot of fun to actually be able to, you know, plan around those time cards.
Yeah,
and there are two like insider tips on that. One would be the minutia, or like everybody pronounces it different, because you don't actually get that one anymore from task rewards. So if you want it, you kind of have to craft it or get it through missions. And the other one would be Counselor Akka. She's being reworked, and she's going to reduce, I think it's either the resource cost or the build time for organizations, which are a mammoth part of your station building time. So that's going to be really useful.
Not just time too. Those also are massive influence boosts too. I think, unless I read it wrong, I think the level 4 or the tier 4 organization is going to be something like 40% of your total influence or something like that, like some crazy amount. So they're going to be big deals too. The organizations in general are and they're all impactful too, and they're going to be fun. It's going to be cool.
That's something that makes Atlas really strong, actually, because they have the 50% time reduction and 50% cost reduction for the organizations.
Oh yeah,
so that's going to be like an indirect boost to economy for Atlas.
Just in general, as Snuggums kind of went through and talked about each of the different factions, we've been theorizing like crazy about, you know, what factions to start with, what to do, and the fact that you're going to get the kind of the refresh card, the clean slate card, to change up your faction every week. So you really can kind of start out with, you know, even if you are like a hardcore Atlas player or you're a hardcore, say, Zaok player, you don't necessarily need to start as that, even though you may be beneficial to do so, but you can kind of flip back and forth and kind of really, you know, do a lot more, you know, really change stuff up. I think it's going to be incredibly interesting. One thing that was noted before, I think Zaok had 20% rating bonus versus NPCs, or actually just rating in general, 20% HP and firepower. I think that's been lowered down to 10%. But that also goes to show, like, all of these numbers are completely, even the rest of the stuff we talk about today, just like forewarned, like may not make it in there. So these are just theories about what we've been thinking about. And it's another reason we kind of pushed back. If you guys will notice, this podcast will be coming out a little bit later than before. When we wanted to do it regularly on Sunday, the test server just wasn't up, and a lot of things were soon to be changed. So we wanted to make sure we could kind of get in on that. So we pushed this back a little bit, and this kind of does the spacing a little bit better because we're obviously not doing it this Sunday because the tournament server releases. But we'll be hopefully doing it the following Sunday where we can kind of talk more about what's been going on the tournament server and everything else to really go with that.
Is also just a great convenient excuse for my hangover. Full disclosure.
Al wasn't here also, but I really did want the test server to be up and for me to log on to it.
Yeah. The whole plan though, even before my great time was, test server and doing exactly this, talking about exactly what's going on. I'm pretty much just going to be like most of you guys who have not been able to log on, and I get to ask all the great questions. So that's going to be my job today.
Yeah.
I think one thing we should note as well is that currently the way the test server works is it's in what's called super fast mode or ultra fast. So everything you do only takes like 5 seconds to do. And we also have access to dev tools, so you could spawn in stuff. It's mostly just about checking if things work the way they're supposed to, finding the bugs and reporting them. So when it comes to like starting strats, it's kind of difficult to get a feel for them right now. It's mostly gut feeling, but there will be so-called flow tests, which will be normal speed, first 24 hours, get a feel for how that plays out. And after that, a balanced pass may or may not be done, very likely will be done based on all the info we get from that.
Well, that's going to be interesting because I think that's happening like maybe like Friday or something, and the server's coming out Sunday. So we're literally also going to be pretty much clueless as to what's going on. We will try to get stuff, and hopefully we'll be able to talk about that maybe in the Discord or depending on when the community roundtable is. I think they said that's the 29th, right? So that is Friday. So maybe it's going to happen right after that. So that's kind of up in the air entirely as well. But yeah, that's a great point. We don't have. Even with everything changing, we don't have like some master plan yet. We're just going to try to give you guys what we know.
We mostly just got ideas. That's all. We don't have concrete like best of, and I don't think there will be best anything. Heavily depends on your spawn, depends on what you're aiming to do in the match. There's drawbacks to everything. There's so much choice right now when it comes to specializing. So it's like depends. Like, do you like to raid? Do you like the solar flares? Like, you're going to build your station completely differently based on that.
Well, and are your neighbors? Do your neighbors like to raid? Do your neighbors like to solar flare hunt? Because you might change up based off that too. So I think what the guys at Solid Clouds have been doing has been awesome. I mean, the amount of choices, the amount of different buildings and station planning stuff you can actually do now, and actual like, everyone keeps asking us too. Like, what are we supposed to be doing? What's going on? And it's like, man, honestly, as long as you're going in with like, all right, this is something I kind of want to do, I think you're going to be pull most things off. It's not going to be like, oh, you went for a rating build, like, oh, we'll see you next server. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many ways of accomplishing stuff, and it's so cool. I really like that in any kind of game, especially a strategy game. It's going to be awesome, guys.
But what I really like is the fact that before, or like Alpha 9, you knew what kind of station you wanted to build. There was no real choice. You just clicked on the buildings, built them up.
Yeah.
Now, like on every building tier, there's competition, there's choice, and you're gonna be stuck for a couple of minutes or hours, even like pondering, like, do I want this building? Do I want that building? Their drawbacks. Yeah, I really like that. It means replayability even. Like being excited to start a new server in the future and just trying a different start, seeing if that works better. Every station is exciting to build now, it feels like.
Yeah, and I think that plays into, like they mentioned before, we're going to average out, have less stations by the end of the game. So that's something to think about too. And I think it all plays into the same like game design mentality of like, let's make these stations actually matter. You're going to see, I mean, I think you guys are going to have an amazing time, an absolute blast building some of these stations. and they've kind of redefined a little bit how each of the tiers work. So you still do have your 3 tiers you're kind of used to, but they're not in any way that you would really recognize them. Because you kind of got like this, the industry style now is more about just like actual industrial ships, and then like streaming, freighting, and they've kind of moved, I think, most of the actual passive resource generation stuff to domain, and that's kind of like your station basis thing, and then for your rating style is going to be the military one, obviously. So it's like your 3 main types of income are kind of a little bit better defined too, because I think domain before was just like, all right, if you want to scan, you're not really making any kind of good like progress as far as generating resources. And I think that'll be really necessary because they're nerfing the crap out of resource generation in general.
Yeah. So that's something that is like really noticeable, that your base station harvest is only at 40%, and the fields have been nerfed by 15%. So compared to what we're used to, we only get like around 36%. I think the math worked out as, and it's really noticeable. It puts even more focus on the resource generating buildings. Want to get them in there. Something that is at the moment, when you start a survey, your first station starts out with 10,000 resources each and a cap of 12,000. I think we'll be able to like push really hard, but I think it also means that there will be more room for error. If you push in the wrong direction, you might get stuck.
Yeah, well, I think we kind of had a conversation about it the other day too. I think industrial players out there, you're going to have a more defined role. It's not going to be like, oh, everyone just has infinite amount of resources like we're used to. It's going to be like, oh, if we want to put that FAB up, if we want to get these buildings up, we're going to need those industrial players to kind of come in and just drop all these resources on one of these FABs or stations. So they're going to be highly useful, and you're actually going to have to plan a little bit around your own station building if you're not one of those resource guys, to make sure you can keep your stations healthy. And I'm hoping for some really cool decision making. Actually, like not having the meta be keep queues up 24/7. Maybe you can if you're good at it. If you're doing a really, really good like match and you're keeping up with all the stuff and you're thinking about all the things, maybe you'll be able to do that. But I don't like it being like the generic, like, oh, anybody, like there's no thought, you'll keep your queues up, you know what I mean? Like, so I like having to dig back in, make sure you're getting the correct amount of research generation.
Yeah, it seems like if you're going for the hammer play style, you're going to be not as good with resources. If you're going to go for the scanner or saboteur play style, you're also not going to be as good with the resources. But if you focus on the resources, you're not going to be as good with hammering or sabotage. I like the fact that specialization is there. It adds to, again, replay value, trying different strats for the entire server, and also adds to the team play aspect of the game, like coming together and
how much
make the best of each other's strengths.
How much would you say that you can kind of balance that, since the stations are relatively unlocked with what they can each individually do? Like, what is the viability that you've seen of like having your first station industrial, and how well can that feed the rest of your empire? Or maybe your first couple are industry stations where you go really heavy for resources, and then the rest of them just pump out military for sabotage.
Again, because we haven't done the flow tests yet, it's somewhat hard to tell. But personally, I definitely think that the first station should be focused on income. Because like if with your first station, the focus often is on fast influence gain, because that allows you to put out your next station sooner and gives you levels on your commander. But also, in my opinion, at the same time, resource income, so you can keep on building and actually pay for the buildings you want to build, and maybe help out your second and even your third station. It's always something that I've focused on. I think it's just much more important now. Not going for any sort of income on your first. I think you'll hit resource walls pretty early, and you're going to hamper your own growth.
Yeah, well, I think it's also a little bit more possible now because of how they've rearranged these tiers. Is you can almost like think about it as like diversifying your income, right? I wouldn't just now, since we have all these other options, you don't have to, I'm just going to do solar flares like as my main source, or I'm just going to do rating. With the amount of flexibility of these buildings, these new building planner, you can kind of go up two of those different allies. All right, I want really good base resource generation, but I also am gonna capitalize on solar flares really hard, or I'm gonna capitalize on raiding really hard, or scrap all of that. I'm just gonna do raiding and solar flares as like my main generation of income, and you're gonna be able to think about it a little bit more in that way instead of like how you kind of do it previously is like, all right, I'm down this tree. This is me, and this is how I'm going to do it. And I'm getting unlimited resources. Now there's so many different ways to work it, and I think people will have the ability to think resource minded and be able to pull it off a little bit better. So it's more about making those decisions, and when you do it, it's going to be rewarding.
I think if you're going to focus on a certain play style throughout the duration of the server, let's say Saboteur, full stealth, you probably want to do that on most of your station builds, meaning that like in the long run of the server, you're going to be lacking in quite a few areas. It's coming from what we're used to with Starborne, it seems like a big nerf. Seems like it'll take quite a lot of us to adapt to the new meta that's coming. And as always, you look at it like beforehand, you have your ideas about how it's going to play out, and then a few matches, a few servers just play out, and then the community adapts to it and gets used to it and just sees it as normal. I'm really interested to see how the community will look at this and play with it.
Oh yeah. Something else which it isn't necessarily the biggest thing ever, but which I kind of like is they've relatively nerfed kind of the NPC level 2 and 3 and upped the amount of resources. So if you're going to be a raider, I think you'll be able to take advantage of these. Looking at the numbers, that's just something that prior I don't think anyone would ever actually do unless you didn't really know what you're getting yourself into. Because
dipping into the specifics of that, the thing I think you're talking about is that they have a lot of resources that they can store, but most of them are hidden behind military barracks.
And the fact that the defenders got nerfed like crazy. Like there's no more frigates in the NPC level 3. Like so 2 and 3 notably got nerfed. 1 and 4 remained the same, but 1 and 4 were like they had purposes, prior, you know what I mean? So it went originally defenders for NPC level 3 went down. They used to be like 500 patrol ships and 100 frigates, and they went down to 350 patrols. And I think they went back up now. Maybe there might be 800 patrols, but regardless, one fleet of patrols for a maximum of what they're working with now is like, they're producing like 15,000 of each resource daily. You let that kind of build up, you get some good plunder, and it might be worth taking that hit. Once again, it's another choice you can do where, at least to my knowledge, no one was hitting NPC level 3s unless you're going to clear them, like bomb them.
Yeah, wasn't really worth it. The thing I see happening there in the future is that if you're playing as a Seok and you are focusing on plunder heavily to really make use of that and use that as your resource income, your neighbors are probably going to hate you. The people that don't go hard for plunder, because you'll be able to clean out those NPCs, reach deep into their safe pockets with your plunder bonuses, and then nobody can really get any resources off of them for days because the resources they'll generate will be safe, and only people that are going for high plunder can actually touch them.
On plunder mechanics real quick, I had a little bit more trouble understanding it on S10. So you have plunder defense, which can go up to 100 with your barricades, or actually, I guess it's going to be different now.
Value.
Yeah, there's a flat value that it protects.
It protects a certain amount of resources or even ships with the military hangars.
And I think I know what you're getting at, though, where most people would assume, okay, I have 50% plunder, I can raid 50% of that. And while that's true, if it's maxed out, it actually always just takes off the top. So if somebody has, say, we'll do easy math, say 100 resources, and they hide up to 1,000, and you have 50% plunder, you would assume you can dig out 500, because that's half of the hidden resources, and you'd get that last 100. But how it actually works is you can only reach in as far as your hand can reach into the bag, which is 500 down. The 100 rests below that, and you actually don't get those 100 resources. So the people that are maxing out your plunder are always grabbing from the very bottom of the bag, and no one else can reach that far. And most people don't totally realize, I think that's how plunder works. Most people equip some plunder cards and just be happy to get some resources, and just assume, it's empty, especially if they don't got great spy reports.
So, so basically, rather than plunder directly countering, like if you have 10%, like you said, 10% of plunder defense, and then you have 10% plunder, they're actually like on the complete opposite end. So like
it's not a percentage for the plunder defense is the main part, right? It's like a solid amount, like 1,000 plunder defense, right? So you can only get the top 100 if you have 10%, not just any 100.
Yeah.
Is the interesting part of that.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah, the plunder is how deep you can reach in. Got it.
Right. Yeah. Think about it as like a giant bag. Yep. And so that's what kind of that's going to be a big thing. Like Brain's hitting on. If one person around you doesn't have huge plunder, it's kind of equal game. Everybody kind of take off the top. If someone's maxed out 100% plunder, it's going to take a while for those resources to ever get to a point, even if those people don't plunder again, to a point where you can grab it. So that it's definitely going to be a useful thing, and there's ways of getting it way up there. So I'm interested to see it.
Another question, the labor streaming.
Yeah.
So specific, like as far as what Snuggums had given us last week, all that I really could understand from it was basically you build a building and you can then stream X amount of that labor. It looks like it's called the Relocation Bureau.
Yes. Tier 3 domain building.
Basically you build it, and then I guess in the streaming tab for logistics, is that where you would go to?
Yeah. And you can it's a slider again. You don't have to stream the max amount. You can up to. The only downside I see with it is that if you stream to a target station, you stream the labor there, but then you would like to stream the resources that you're also able to stream to a different station. You can't do that. You can only have one streaming target. So you have to stream both the labor and the resources to the same station.
Okay. That makes sense with how the UI works.
I was going to make my next question, so you know that.
So there's going to be some planning with that. Also, because we're talking about streaming, there's something I like to touch on. So you can, as normally as we used to, stream resources as well, which won't take freighters anymore to do.
Neither will streaming labor. I think that's a
exactly
good point, right.
So that's your streaming, and then you can build the trading port, which is an outpost you put on the map, 1 hex radius, will harvest resource fields in that radius at 75% effectiveness per level, does not harvest labor. And this ties into streaming, because the exact amount of resources that trading port harvests, you can also stream.
So does that add on top of your streaming potential, yes, or will that automatically? Okay, so
it
if
adds
you build
to the top of the streaming, that you can build a tier 2 industrial building,
drone
500 streaming of
drone launch facility,
and then you can build the trading port, which will allow you to stream additionally the resources it harvests. So you can either use the trading port as an extra income for the station, or use it to harvest resources that you want at another station.
Right. Food for thought, and it might be tied into actually how the outpost has to be built. What if you just had the outpost and you didn't have drone launch facility? Do you still have access to?
Yes, those are two different streaming capabilities that tie into the same mechanic.
Okay, so like you're not locked out of streaming if you don't have drone launch.
No,
right.
You can do either one or the other or both.
Any way you want it, any way you can get it.
Yep.
And with labor too, I think it's important to note, I think the current numbers right now is streaming about 400 labor. That's just kind of important to bring up, because I know we talked about it with Snuggums, but he didn't have any exact numbers. Once again, those numbers may not be the final thing, but it's about half a light fleet is what you're streaming. It really is just kind of a rollover is all you're really dealing with there.
I don't think the intention was to just farm labor with stations
Right.
and stream the entirety of it to one specialized station that's there for just supplying fleets. I think a lot of us know that we had stations that had a few hundred excess labor that we couldn't really use because you couldn't fleet an entire fleet with it. Now you're able to stream up to 400 of that labor to a station that actually is good at supplying fleets and make use of it there. Get another like 2 or 3 fleets out of it.
Right. Or even just topping off, you know what I mean? So like any of that kind of stuff. And because a lot of the ideas, right, a lot of the theory crafting right now is, everybody stream everything to your capital. I think it's totally fine, but if you do it again, once again, you're going to end up with just like 700 because I have 700 and I've streamed my 400. You know what I mean? So I think using it more of a like leveraging for the rounding errors will help out more. I would
in general, it seems like we are going to have less labor than we're used to. Also, because now every station can build a mining facility. You don't need any requirements for it when it comes to industrial buildings or anything like that. Just every station can build one mining facility. And often mining facilities were used to grab the ice fields, which they still can, but every station can only build one of them.
Can they still? They can still grab ice fields?
Yeah, they can grab.
Is it the trading port that can't, or can everything?
Trading port cannot, and the mining colony will not be able to do anymore as well.
Okay, and I think it's just you just need 2 of any building to build that mining facility outpost. I think it's like
there's no like requirement for it to be like industrial focus or anything.
Right, which so everyone will get that one use. That will definitely be, but yeah, you're not going to end up with the 4 mining facilities. That's just unfortunately not going to be a thing. So once again, not only are resources being nerfed, not only is your station harvest 40% instead of 100%, you're also dealing with just less ways of mining the resources. So
just touching on the harvest again, so people aren't completely spooked. Like at base, yeah, it's only 40% of what we're used to, but it looks like if you want to invest into a station harvest, you absolutely can. There's a tier 2 domain building, which increases it by 30%. There is there are policies, there are factions that do it. Like if you really go hard for harvest and income, like let's say you specialize, you can actually do it better than you currently can. Again, it just ties into the whole thing of like they want us to specialize more into an area instead of everybody being like jack of all trades, master of none kind of deal.
Right. Yeah. That's definitely I'm excited for that. And kind of touching back to just getting back to we kind of touched on capitals a little bit, but we were kind of asking what makes them unique now. Besides, we've been talking about rally points where you'll be able to build ships and send them there. That makes it powerful. There's also a new building called the Seat, which is kind of going to be your extra. So once again, every station is only going to get the 3 generally. The mining, like the metal producing, gas producing, crystal producing, but you're also only getting 1 labor building. So which is another reason labor is going to be a little bit lower. But the capital, the Seat is a capital only building, and that's going to give you another, I think, just 10 levels of additional labor.
So the 1 labor building will give you 1,600 flat labor, just to throw that out there. So basically 2 light fleets. The Seat, I don't have the numbers right now, but like the Seat is a very good building for influence gain. You get a lot of influence from that one. So I know there are certain people out there who really focus on how much influence can I gain, at what costs, how quickly, just to snowball early.
I got the numbers. This is its own unique capital slot. And it's going to output at level 10, 8,000 more labor.
Yeah, and so
as of right now,
we've got some people that crunching a lot of numbers, and they're looking like, influence and everything. So it seems like just going to throw that info out there. The first 2 levels of the Seat are really good for influence. So if you want to really spike your influence early on your starting station, you could just build the Seat 2 levels, get the labor to use, get the fast influence.
Yeah, and it says once again, all these numbers are up in the air. Totally changed, but their idea is that's going to be 200 additional, almost 200 additional influence.
But this has got to cost an arm and a leg.
That's what
though.
I was about to get into too.
So like, get it
almost
early.
a
It's
quarter
like,
million resources is total resource cost, and about 15 days to complete to level 10.
Yeah,
by
and at
itself.
that point, it's 8,000 extra labor on that capital station.
Yeah, so I mean, it's obviously worth it. It's going to be there, but that just adds once again why you may not want to be flipping your capitals around, because you're going to want to start that seat early. You're going to want to, because that's no joke. I mean, that's literally 10 light fleets, a little bit
And
less.
when it comes to capitals, so as far as we know, or we've been told, that during a match you'll be able to switch out which station is your capital for free once. And after that, it looks like you can still do it, and it would cost you command overhaul cards,
which are going to be more valuable in general. So you may not want to throw those around all the time.
Yeah, but like if your capital gets blown up, I don't know exactly how the game does it, but it selects one of your other stations and makes it the capital, which might not be the one you want. And if you've already used your free capital switch, you can still do it, but using command overhaul cards.
Yeah.
So yeah, talking about labor, so the FAB dome is changed. Changed. Yeah, it harvests labor off of ice fields, and I've tested that works. And with the right tier 4 organization, it would also harvest labor from planets and moons. Right now, the test server doesn't work, but that's how it's
get it right.
So with cards and everything, you could actually, like, if you find the right spot with good planets and moons and ice close by, you could do the same thing that people usually do with mining colonies and just plop it at a good spot, double card for it, and just harvest like a lot of labor.
And they have taken away the yup, where you can have 2 of the tier 4 outposts. For people that did catch that before, there's a yup for each of the, to be able to build a second of each of the outposts. And they did take that one away because they realized, all right, people were doubling down on cards for mining facilities, HAB domes, and the HSAs. Well, I guess HSA wouldn't really make sense. I guess it probably would still speed it up, but
you could. Oh man, like
so they've gotten rid of it before.
Talking about double outposts, there's something that I feel like I need to bring up. Like, people need to be aware of something that can happen.
Crab walk.
So with the right, you can build 2 tier 3 outposts, which would allow you to build 2 fortresses. Fortress now only give
the difference.
Fortresses now only give claim. They're not anymore there for intercepting combat. They're just for claim. So the idea there is that you plop down your first fortress, you gain extra claim area. You now build your second fortress at the outmost claim of your first, getting even more claim. Now you could recycle your first fortress, which will give you back your commodities. That's a change that's in the game now. You always get your commodities back. So recycle the first fortress and now place that fortress in the outmost claim of your second fortress. And that way you can just like move your claim further out for a long, long time. That takes time investment. The further you go, the longer the travel time. But potentially
lock up areas on the map.
You could potentially walk the claim of a station across the map to another station you own, then tear down one of those fortresses and build the new tier 3 outposts for the industrial side, which is the logistics hub, which does the fleet intercepting in combat. Effectively protecting a station that's very far away. And the thing that I see, the problem I see with this is it's not intuitive. Counterplay-wise, you look at a station cluster, you see a logistics hub there, you assume that that belongs to one of the stations that are in the cluster, but that might not be the case. It takes a lot of investment doing that, and if that logistics hub gets sabotaged, you have to send the repair move from the owning station, which could mean quite a lot of travel time. But I feel that people need to be aware of this, so they don't get like completely surprised and caught off guard. It's a mechanic that may or may not be used, again, because of the investment required. But it's unintuitive. I just want people to know about this.
Yeah, and because that may be, I mean, they definitely are on a time crunch. There's a lot of stuff they're putting into the game, and they're doing a fantastic job with it. But this doesn't also seem like something that's easily changeable without just also removing the tier 3 outpost thing. And just to be clear, Logistics Hub is now just the, I think you said it, but just the old fortress without the claim. So they just torn that building apart, made 2. But it really isn't that hard to do, especially if you're just trying to get a little bit, like, say your station's only like, maybe 20 hexes away. It doesn't take that much work for me to crab walk over there, replace one of the fortresses with the Logistics Hub, and we're good to go. So that's just something to super watch out for, because I know people already, aren't aware of it half the time. In the current play, when 2 stations are near each other, especially if you're not probing well enough, you can already miss the Logistics Hub or Old Fortress. So yeah, that's a great kind of public service announcement if it makes it into the game. Obviously, I'm assuming they're going to try to address that, but you never know. And
they might just see how it plays out during the tournament. Like, yeah, it's possible. Yeah, it's kind of a fringe case, but is it really viable? Will it become a meta or not?
Right.
I think, like, if this stays in the game, it just makes spying a lot more important. Like preparing, like looking really at the stations that you're trying to attack and figuring out what's going on. What are my options? What does the defender have there? What are their options? Just doing your prep work.
Oh yeah. And are both of those, so the tier 3 buildings also take 6 of each, and I think the Logistics Hub is currently an industrial outpost.
Yeah.
And I'm just making sure, like, thinking about it, it'd still be fairly easy to pull off even with a station build, that you're not trying for it, because
that's like something that surprises people still, is that now you can only really feasibly build 1 outpost of each tier, right? Unless you build the relevant EUB or YUP.
Yep.
So many of us are used to just having Stargates everywhere, right? Because we gotta go fast. We really like that.
Yeah.
But now Logistics Hub, the extra claim with Fortress, all that like competes with each other. So you might see smaller clusters being used more often to get the Stargate there, to get the Logistics Hub there, maybe the Fortress and stuff. But be aware of that. Like, there is a lot of choice involved again.
Well, just speaking on smaller clusters, I think we're going to see that be more of a meta too, because once again, you have less stations. The mega clusters aren't going to seem as advantageous because, I mean, if you're only going to cap out, I mean, he said he wants to bring the average to 12. I mean, some players will be down to 10 stations, maybe a 9-station system if you're holding on to too many TCs. So, like, you're thinking if you're down to 9 stations, that's three station clusters. At 12 is 4 3 stations. It doesn't seem like the biggest deal in the world when you're thinking about, I only got to 15 or 16 before. But I think it's going to be big, and there's just so much utility to each station now, and so much like real thought that goes into them. I see these mini clusters being able to do a lot more with just a few stations and kind of capitalizing on like that. So I'm excited to kind of see what you guys come up with, what we're going to be going up against when you enter a new sector, and kind of seeing each sector and each alliance kind of doing their own thing and come up with their own plans. It's like, all right, I'm invading, this neighbor sector, and like, look at the clusters they've been doing, look at these kind of theories and ideas they've been coming up with. I think that's exciting for the new tournament server too. It really isn't, anywhere near the same game. So it should be exciting.
So are there any organizations that when you look at them, like, get you real excited?
So one that obviously the one Stiggs touched on gets me excited. I'm not too sure how we use the Gatos for your. I think we got numbers on it now, which is the more exciting part. It's like try to get it real quick. Supplied corvettes get plus 30 firepower and minus 75 hit points while raiding. Supplied destroyers get 150 minus 375 while raiding. I'm really excited to see hangar raids because, like, with high plunder, you can also raid hangars as well as resources. And this is something to think about, a lot of people will be using rally points for capitals. Yep. A lot of people will have a lot of stuff hanging out in those hangars and capitals. especially if it's an early war, especially if you're doing that stuff. I really hope this isn't coming back to bite me, because I know I'll have stuff in my hangar, but if someone drops a got this Fritos, throw like a few hundred Corvettes at a hangar, I mean, you're taking out massive amounts of stuff if it's not well protected, obviously, and hopefully it will be. But if you're real close by and people are sending stuff out to raid, you know what I mean, you got a decent chance to do some kind of damage, at least make your money back. So
you got to be careful with those suicide raiders. Like, I'm excited to see if that becomes like a strat that gets used more often, because it seems completely interesting to me. Like the chaos aspect that it plays into, completely oppressive. The one that gets me excited is Attacka. +3 speed for supplied fleets while raiding, scanning, saboing. Like, gotta go fast. I like the speed.
Oh yeah, I think that's gonna be. I mean, that might be more of a staple building too. Of like, all right, what do you want to do? Like, I think it's wonderful, man. I mean, because it's not just like on raid, it's not just on scan, it's all of them. You know what I mean? So you're getting a lot out of that.
But it's not on assault, right? That's not there.
Correct, which is
it's
very
not for complete hammering, but
and it's not for solar flares. You don't get it for the indies.
Yeah.
So it does take those two out, but I love it. I think it's cool.
There is one organization I want to touch on that I find is completely underwhelming at its current state. It's tier 4 military organization called Magna Exercitus. Says supplied fleets gain firepower units and hit points. For lights, it's 2 firepower, 5 hit points, 10 firepower and 25 hit points for heavies, and 50 firepower and 125 hit points for capitals. For a tier 4 organization, I just don't see it, to be honest.
And let's just talk about the cost here for tier 4. They're talking about for military one specifically, 100K metal, 40K gas, 60K crystal. And time is, I don't know if it's showing correctly, is that a day and 6 hours?
That's it?
That's it.
Well, I thought, okay, so the notes we had from Snugums, that says 200,000 for tier 4s.
Yeah, 200,000 total. So 100,000, 40, 60 gives you the 200,000 total resources.
Oh,
so okay. If you look at this bonus, it's less than a common card.
But it's plus a common card. I mean, it's an additional thing that's out of it. So I think where you really see it not being like I see where you're getting at is like when you're looking at the other military one. I mean, you're getting heavy assembly as like the other organization, which obviously absolutely wonderful. The other one's New Horizons increases station claim radius by 1. The other one was a Habdome HD now harvests planets and PNMs as well. Yeah. So the other one, Huang's Emporium, I have a love-hate. I have like one build I've put up, and maybe we'll talk about it later, but it's the lower resource exchange ratio by the station by 1. It's there, right? I don't know if it's a tier 4 worthy. That's my like thing. But the other thing is it's tough with the tier 4 ones in general, because all of them, it's so hard to not go for the one that's affecting your Habdome, the one that's affecting your mining colony, and the one affecting your HSA, right? It's really sorry. The military one was it doesn't give you your heavy ship assembly. It gives you gunships on your heavy ship assembly. So I don't think I finished that sentence last time. That's a really big deal. So it's like, if you want to be building gunships, that's going to be your bread and butter. But the thing is, with the tier 4 organization for the military one, which is why I may have overlooked the Magna Excursus, is because like, well, if I'm not building gunships, I'll just take that because it's better than nothing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And it's a little bit better than what I was dealing with before. So like, and it's free pretty much because I'm not going to build gunships here.
I mean, it's like, for me, maxing really effectiveness of your fleets, you're just going to take it. It's just like the numbers seem a bit off for me when it comes to like investment of building a tier 4 organization.
Yeah, I totally think that's fair, because they're huge investments. And the fact that I think, once again, it's like 40% of your influence or something like that, of your station influence, is just huge. I'm really thinking I'm reading that wrong, but like the other thing is they've lowered the station influence to level it up. Like, so the level 1 is, I think, 20 instead of 25. Level 2, where it ends up being it compacting down to the level 4 is actually 120, which is the old level 3. So you can see the influence. They're already banking on it being a lot less in the beginning, and then really gaining influence as you get these organizations. And I think that's the point too, where Magnus Curtis, are you really getting that much influence? Your station's 40% better by doing the Magnus Curtis. Whereas gunships, I'm so excited for the gunship one, honestly. So that's another reason I really didn't look at it. So I'm kind of regaining this for the Magnus Curtis. So I'm hitting it so much, but I'm kind of planning, and we kind of set up roles. I'm kind of thinking no one else in my alliance is going to be building gunships. It's not mandatory anymore. So I plan on doing a lot of the gunship facilities, because it's going to come down to, hey, we need to bomb someone, or I'm like, hey guys, let's go attack these people, and they're going to be like, well, with what gunships? And I'm going to be like, well, crap. So that's what I've been really, really on top of. But yeah, besides those,
there's two things I'd like to touch on still.
Yeah, sure, good.
So previously, the way we've built stations, I think most of us just picked up a couple of extra freighters for the Empire, right?
Yeah.
So we had those lying around. We were still complaining about freighters. We thought like, capacity is low. We have too few. The way we might be building stations now, I think a lot of us will have fewer freighters. And freighting is going to be harder. And in general, like most of us are just going to have less resources.
Yeah, and you won't have the resources to freight.
You won't have the resources to freight, and even if you have them, you probably don't have the freighters to do it. Unless, of course, again, you specialize in being the industrial player, producing a lot of resources, being good at freighting those around, really helping out your alliance to build the alliance station, the FOBs, building up the Dyson and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I think honestly, I see why they've reduced the resources, and I like that because it solves a lot of the common problems that people used to get really upset about. One being like, oh, my queue length isn't long enough. Like I need more time for my building queue lengths. Like, well, do you really if you don't have the resources to queue up? You know what I mean? And then also, oh, I never have enough freighters. There's never enough freighters. That's like a huge complaint. And once again, well, maybe you don't need as many if you don't have the resources. So I love where they're going with that. But that's such a great point to bring up. You're going to have to specialize in it. You're not just picking up something off the side. Especially because I think the freighting is one of them's like in the tier 1 and tier 2. I don't know, but like you can't just pick up anything from any tier. You're still locked into tier 1 buildings in the tier 1 category.
Yeah, you have to make the choice. Like in Alpha 9, it's just like a side effect of how we built stations that we got it.
Yep.
Now you have to specifically choose to do it. I don't think it's going to be as much of a side effect thing, but more like you'll consider it and you'll actively choose to do so.
Yeah, a real decision, and yeah. I do like that. I like that a lot.
I mean, I might be wrong about this. Again, numbers might change. I don't know, but that's what it looks like to me. Something to take into consideration, like the whole resource game.
Yeah.
Especially with lockout being after 4 weeks, you have to have your Dysons built, right?
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to do some planning. Like, okay, who are our resource producers? Like, we gotta get those resources there. You gotta be on top of it.
Lockout is 4 weeks in. 4 weeks in or 4 weeks out, it doesn't matter. It's in the middle. Holy crap.
That's a midpoint, yeah. So you have to push harder to build that stuff in time. And it seems to me like it's going to be harder to do it because people have to specialize in having all those resources and freighting capabilities. So it would suck on the tournament server if people just miss that because nobody has the freighters, nobody has the resources. Like, I want people to think about that. So you already have some opposition there.
Well, especially as stations start to finish up, and I think they've actually increased the amount of the length it takes to finish a station, and I think you can probably add a little bit more time to that even because you have less resources. But once you finally do start freeing up those stations, that's when you're going to realize, oh, I don't have freighters. Like, oh, all of a sudden I have all these extra resources sitting around because I finally finished up my station, and where are all my freighters? And you don't want to be in that situation where now I have to spend my resources tearing down buildings to make sure I got these or I've done it. So I'm interested. I'm interested to see where it goes.
I mean, if you have a station built where you're going, like, let's say for an HSA, and most of your organizations will be military as well, you might be able to get some like freighter stuff in there. But if you want to do like one type of outpost, say military, but still have domain organizations, then you're not going to have freighters. So it's like, yeah, I think people will spend a lot of time just looking at the possibilities of how you build your stations, the choices that have to be made, the downsides of everything, and the pros and cons in general. Just theorize some station builds. Like, there's just so much choice. At this point in time, I can't give people like good builds. Again, depends on situation and depends on what you need and what you want. And there's just so many variables right now. It's just my head's still spinning. Like, I'm trying to figure this out. And I've got some theories in my head of what I want to do, but that's based off my very subjective opinion and the strat I'm thinking of doing for tournament. But like,
not until you really also get like an actual time frame, like in time terms, like, you know, you also haven't gotten to play it with the flow test, you know.
Speaking about that, that was just announced as we're speaking. Flow test is coming tonight.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Tonight?
Really? Yes.
Oh,
or
man.
I guess for you guys, it's just like middle of the day or afternoon. For me, it's during the night.
No.
Black magic of time zones.
Plans. Oh, no.
Scrap your plans.
I know. But everybody's going to be so upset.
Oh, yeah. That's
awesome. Sorry that has sidetracked me so hard. Oh my God, ETA 2 to 3 hours. Okay, get back on.
Oh yeah,
that'll allow me to test something out, because so when it comes to starting builds and factions, which factions will be really good for the start, I want to check out both Terran and Frontier Legion. Terran, obviously, they give you a flat income boost, which counts as refineries. So everything that increase the yield of refineries, all the bonuses will increase the bonus that Terran will give you. Also be able to augment your own outposts that you might build for income. The other one I'm interested in testing is the Frontier Legion, because of the buff to harvest. So I think that's going to be...
Yeah.
I think they're going to be really strong starts, but then again, flow test, we'll have to see. And I think it would be good if we don't have a definitive best faction, best start ever. Like, if there are choices, pros and cons, we'll have to see. We'll give you our opinions, and they're going to be heavily biased.
Yeah, we're definitely very different players. But it's cool that you're able to come at it from different angles, come up with different solutions.
And I mean, Sayok could be a good start if you like really focus rating hard early on. You've got your rating policies already maxed to 5, and you just, as soon as you level 5, you go Sayok, and you just take it all from everyone.
Like, as much as we've been talking about all this, like I have, and I guess also because I haven't gotten to get in and play on Testserver, I have flip-flopped so many times on what I think is going to be important and what I want to do. Like, I've been thinking for a while, I thought, all right, I'll just go Atlas again because we're going to need scanning. And then I'm thinking, oh, but Intel is going to be important, so Tin Chow, definitely need to get that. But, and then at the beginning of this talking about, like, you know, raiding and plunder, I'm thinking that is going to be awesome. I'm definitely going Zayok, like I originally wanted to do way back before all this started. But then talking about just the resource reduction, I'm now thinking MPL. I don't know. What am I?
MPL and Frontier Legion both have them, and but even Zayok, the single-mindedness that they have is like, you know, resource cost and time cost for military buildings is down by 10%. If you have a bunch early on, those are big buffs to that too. So it's like crap. Like,
I think we're at a good spot when you look at the factions. They're like, oh, this one, but then there's that one. Like, if there's not like a definitive choice for any playstyle that you want to do, but there are options.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick
that's
one.
Replayability. Like, you might do one strat one server, and then you want to do a similar strat next server, but you want to do it as a different factions, learn a bit from your mistakes, and just switch it up. Like, I really like that.
Yeah, I love that you keep bringing up that point, because it's something I honestly don't think about a lot of times when I'm thinking about, you know, gameplay or design in general. Like, when I'm like, oh, what would make a good game? I'm thinking like, all right, what can I get now, you know? But it's like, no, like, this is a game you're gonna play over the course of multiple servers. You're gonna, you know, be restarting from base 1 again. It's not just like this Empire game that goes on forever. So to keep those replayability factors in there is huge, and I do really like that. Of, oh, I can do this differently this server. Oh, I can do this different this server. Especially because we're gonna play a lot of servers that aren't a tournament server. You know what I mean? Like, for this one, I think we're going for a lot of optimal stuff. But I can't wait to sink my teeth into, you know, just one of the random beta servers just pop on in and be like, hey, this would be awesome if we just pulled this off, or this station build, or this is something I've always wanted to do that I've only seen some of the better players pull off, and I've always been too scared to try it myself. So.
I mean, I'm looking forward to doing like heavy industrial stuff, like chill play style, not as active, but really being a good addition to any team out there that wants to have me. Like I've been doing on server 10, like I focused heavily on industrial and help build the FABs and send resources. But it's a play style that I think is doesn't demand as much as like actively being a hammer or like a saboteur or a spy guy, but still very, very valuable.
Oh yeah. Well, I think the main thing that comes with this other one is just a risk management, right? If you're a main bomber, I don't want you getting hit, right? You got to be able to have your fleets constantly moving and constantly protected. If you're an industrial player, I think they're adding a lot more tools to it, but you don't have necessarily all the risks, like especially because I definitely plan on playing NPL. I've already snagged that faction, but like, please come hit me in my frigate hammer. You know what I mean? Like please come attack it. I've been waiting for you to attack it. It's not a big deal. I can most nights go to sleep nicely, but honestly, at the same time, now that I'm that much more needed for defense, if someone else is getting attacked, I need to be able to log on quickly and make sure I can get my fleets over there.
Yeah.
Make sure I have the Stargate up. Make sure I have all this other stuff going on. And I don't think that one organization does deployments. That'd be kind of nice. That'd be a pretty interesting thing. But
I like that. That's more of a thing, like just being the defender guy, like being called upon to move your ships to a station to just defend.
Yeah, that's the old Imperial mindset.
It sounds cool to me.
Right. Oh yeah.
Again, like I've said it so many times, I've got a soft spot for the Terran bros out there. Coming in with augments, like I love those guys. I always love to have a couple of those on my team. But some of them, they really like that. They're just like looking for, anybody need anything augmented? Come on, I'm sitting on my points. I want to do something. It's like, yeah, happily, here.
You got Lord Augmentine out there, an official handing out augments for things, these. I think that's hilarious. I really get a kick out of that. So anytime you can make someone have a specialized thing, or I can do something you can't. On a team game, I always think it's good, right? Because then you're encouraging each other. It's not like this other stuff, but yeah. And then at the same time, is that internal kind of jealousy, like, ooh, that guy's kind of getting all this attention. Maybe I want to go do that, or this or that. And but then you can't have too many, right? It's not, you can't be an OP thing because everyone's Terran, bro. Like then you're missing out on literally 5 different, completely fleshed out and now distinct factions. And it's like, man, like, so you need all of these for every one of your teams.
Yeah.
So and which helps a little bit, I think, and maybe part of the mindset of increasing the alliance cap to 25, and that may just be tournament server, not just talking randomly, but it has helped out a lot because there's so many roles I want filled. It's like, all right, I need all these I need this amount of this player, this amount of that player, and it's like it has helped out a decent amount, getting that the extra 5 members in there to round out what we need.
Yeah, I mean, we had everything we were looking for kind of on S10 when we played as FAB or Winged Hussars, however you spin it.
Oh, with Z, just to
yeah. Got a C in my name. I'm evil. we had the augment guys in there. We had the saboteurs. We had the bombers. Like you can get all of that in 20, but I like having more room. 25.
I like the padding.
The padding.
The padding on your alliance members. The padding to have the extra players.
Yeah,
just for safety. But
I really like the thing we did on S10. We had a good run. Like we didn't win it. We weren't in it to win it really. I mean, would have liked to, right?
Yeah.
But we had so much fun, such a good time.
Yeah, that ends tonight, so we won't be able to tell people to break down their stuff tonight. But that will definitely be over.
At least for S11 and S12. Yeah, break down your stuff on those servers.
Yeah, and I've made an account. That's the other. I made an account on it and keep my policies going.
I think let's probably save more of the S10 talk though for next podcast because we can dive into it a little bit more.
Yeah, I would like to dive into a lot of the A9 servers next week. So maybe even some alliance leaders, if you guys want to give us shout outs, ping us or like PM us and say like, hey, maybe this is something that happened. I would like to hear from maybe do like a winners announcement of each of the alliances, or I don't know. There's a lot of stuff we could do, but if you have anything interesting definitely message one of us.
I think that's what we'll try to do maybe for next server is we'll try to announce all the winners. Recap. Yeah, that'll be kind of cool. So that'll be that'll be the plan for next podcast at this time. I think it's a good place to probably wrap it up too because we're almost an hour in. So I hope everyone enjoyed this week's podcast. It was a lot easier to keep the time down since we didn't have info for days from the plant man. So again, to recap the important information, Starborne Roundtable event will be on the 29th at 1800 server time or GMT. The game itself goes live at 1500 GMT on December 1st.
Oh my God, did you get that info?
It's actually in the launcher now. So.
Oh man. Okay.
Although we've also had reports that it's going to be 1600, so the report might be wrong or the actual in-game launcher might be wrong. 1500 to 1600, you can expect it to go live at that time.
That's exciting.
Yeah, as we were just talking about, we'll do A9S10 recap, and if anyone else wants to come in next server or next podcast for talking about what the politics of their server, that'd be great. This Sunday is going to be D-Day, obviously, drop day. So we'll all be, way busy with that. And then after that first weekend game, we'll start talking very briefly about what's going on. We'll probably start getting more into the political side of things since we've been talking gameplay things for the last freaking 3 podcasts. So we'll get kind of on the political discussion side, and we'll just have a good time.
An unbiased look at it. We'll definitely try to not be like, oh, we're good and everyone's evil. More of like, this is what's happening. Well, obviously that's true, but like we're not gonna get into depth about it, okay? But like I would like to just do like a who's who of what alliances are here, what's going on in the thing, and not particularly to deal with our alliance, but to just say overall, this is what's happening. This is how many GTs so and so has, and maybe even like a recap for people are listening back and what happened. I would like to have known what happened on A8 season 1. That's like the one I missed. So that's something I would have gone back and listened to. So personally, that's something exciting to me.
Who knows? Maybe we can dig up some old archive stories in the future and find some dirt on.
There's a million things to do, I think. So we're excited. But once again, we're going to try to get back to the 2-week podcast thing. It makes it less work on us as well, because it's these last ones, like we've been putting them together. We've been doing a pretty decent job, but also just kind of give you guys a break too. So.
Alrighty, guys. Well, thanks again for sticking around. Hope y'all enjoyed it. Be sure to PM, DM, message us. Prefer
Nihilus.
Ping Nihilus.
Ping Nihilus.
Not in game though. Always in Discord. Stay casual. Stay frosty, and keep up that
fight against boredom. We beat you to it. Take it easy, guys.
I mean, I think you barely beat me just because, like, time delay. It was tied on my end.
Get Craig out of here. Get him out of here.
Oh, all right. Bye, Craig.
Then we can beef.